Good morning, everybody. This is Joshua, Backdoor from Bronson Coffee Roasters. We're doing a live video today, not really a video, doing a live demo today, something we're trying to call our deeper dives. We're trying to go a little bit deeper into some of the coffees that we have in our catalog. So today, what we're going to be looking at is the Nori Kori, which is our Papua New Guinea. This is just a lovely coffee. When you look across the catalog that Backdoor from Bronson has, hi Eric, bonjour, good to see you, throwing in some French there, I like that. When you look across the catalog that we have, you know that there are in general three kind of broad regions that we buy coffee from. I'm going to switch over really quick to the monitor here because I want to show you where the coffee does come from. So, the coffee that we're talking about today comes from Papua New Guinea. You can see my cursor there on top of it. I have a little red dot here. Here we are up in the corner up here. Oh, I'm actually covering it with my little face. Let me move that out of the way for you. We'll go like that. There. So we're up here, right? You go all the way across the Pacific Ocean. Now you might know that we also, we purchase a lot of our coffee from this region here, right? I have Colombia highlighted there because we talked about Colombia Las Brisas. Something you might notice if you just take a look at the equator there. This, of course, if you've been to any of these classes before where we talk about coffee origins, you'll know that we buy our coffee from several places around the earth, but they share certain things in common. One of those things is, of course, that they are all located in a band that circles the Earth between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn. And that band is found above and below the equator by equal distance. And you'll see that here we have our Colombia right here. Look at Papua New Guinea, probably just about the same distance below the equator as the Colombia is above it. So just when you look across our entire catalog, we get a lot of coffee from Latin America. And what do we mean by Latin America? Where we have North America, Mexico, Central America, and then of course South America. We get coffees from Colombia, from Peru, from Bolivia, from Brazil, of course. So all great coffees. We get a lot of coffees from those regions. However, we also get coffees from other regions, of course. Africa, which I won't show you right now because we'll be diving into some African coffees next week. But here, this part of the world, as it, of course, shares that orientation in the tropics, as long as it has other things that the kind of coffee we want needs, like elevation and the right amount of shade and the right moisture, and then we can find it here as well in a region often kind of associated with Oceania, sometimes called the Asia Pacific region, right? Because it's Pacific, it's in part of Asia, just above Australia here. Papua New Guinea, I'll go all the way right down to where we're talking about with this coffee, right down here to Nori Kori. Nori Kori is the town associated with a washing station. But we'll talk about that after we talk a little bit more about the coffee itself. So let's take a look at this coffee. What do we say when we talk about the flavors that we find in the coffee? So as you know, on any bag of coffee that you purchase from us, whether you get it online or go into one of our stores, we have tasting notes. And if we look at those tasting notes here, we have lemon, caramel, and cedar. So The lemon quality is going to be a freshness and a brightness on the palate. It will also relate somewhat to the perceived acidity. The caramel talks about some of those sweeter notes that we're able to coax out through the roasting process. And that cedar truly, truly is something which often we find is very unique quality to many coffees that come from Asia Pacific. Not unique to them, but we often hear that flavor descriptor used when we're talking about these coffees. We refer back to the flavor wheel that I've mentioned before. The flavor wheel is something that we use in the coffee industry as we seek to discern the flavors that we are discovering when we taste a coffee. So in this instance, we're going to be discussing some of the citrus notes, as well as some of these what might be considered maybe spice notes in the cedar, and then the sweetness, the caramel. And let's see if this caramel, oh, it's thickened up quite a bit. I made that this morning, and I was hoping to use it for some drinks later. Maybe I'll even make a drink with this Nori Kori. So here we are. Sorry, I got distracted by some of the comments coming in. Joshua's using the aptly named Clever Dripper today. Yes. I don't know if it's a reference to me. I don't know that I'm particularly clever. But the Clever Dripper is absolutely clever. We're going to use that in just a moment. So we know where the coffee comes from. Let's go here to the website here really quick and take a look at the coffee. So we have, if you go to our website, you can follow the link that's either in the title here or that's been mentioned by Ben or Brendan in the comments. The Nori Kori, when you go to it and you find it, I always like to point out that we have these detailed coffee reports. I love to click on those. I love folks to visit those, because what that is it's Bob, our green bean buyer, working to communicate with folks a little bit more about the coffee so that you can have a closer relationship with it as you bring that into your home and into your kitchen and you share it with your guests. So the key thing about this Papua New Guinea coffee is that it is a washed coffee, fully washed. So what does that mean? You'll look when you read the reports over on the side. Here we have the region of origin, and so we get very specific about where it comes from. We'll talk about the varieties of coffee that are found in this coffee from this washing station. And then we, of course, mentioned the process, which, of course, is fully washed. Now, if you look under varieties, you'll see there's several. So this coffee is going to be considered a small lot coffee because of the lot is oriented around the washing station that it comes from, right? So often when we talk about the coffees that have the level of specificity that we're dealing with here, when we have these types of specialty coffees, we can refer to a coffee which is of a particular type in a particular place on a farm, or it can be located around a particular washing facility or processing facility. In this case, as with many places in the world where coffee is grown, coffee is one crop that a farmer may have on their land. It might be only a portion of what they're growing, and it has its season when it comes in to bloom, and then when it ripens, and it is then harvested by that farmer, and in this case brought to the washing station. They will have other things that they grow on that same land. So the washing station really becomes central to multiple farmers, and it's the washing station where they really begin a very, very diligent sorting of the coffee to ensure that we're getting the best coffees. In this case, of course, we mean ripe, right? If coffees are not ripe, that affects the flavor that's locked in that seed, and it inhibits the development of what can be found within that seed when we get it to roast it. So in this case, it's a specific family. It's the Colbran family. They have a long history in Papua New Guinea. specifically with coffee. There's been some ups and downs with coffee quality. They've really focused on, specifically with this washing station, with making sure that we're getting really great coffees sorted out at the washing station. And so the coffees that are coming in are of different types, grown in very close to that washing station. They get sorted at the washing station. They go through a traditional fermentation. And then another key element here, which, when I was first learning about coffees from Asia Pacific, one of the generalizations that I was taught, rightly or wrongly, was that we often thought of coffees from Asia Pacific as being specifically the processing being not wet as often as that combination of processing which exists between the dry method and the wet method, semi-washed. And often the coffees would be pulped right on the farm with a hand pulper, and then dried directly on the ground, not on the dirt, but usually on a tarp or something above the ground. And that often led to hard to source coffees simply because of what could happen in those uncontrolled settings to that coffee that's being dried. Now, in this case, this washed coffee, of course, is going through a different process, fully washed with fermentation to remove the mucilage. And then it's going on to what's really key, I think, here are the elevated drying beds. So those elevating drying beds allow the coffee, after it has had the mucilage removed with use of water and agitation, to be really evenly dried above the ground, away from any possible contaminations that can occur from things being dried on the ground. But also allows them to dry faster because you have circulation of air. So I think that's really something special about being able to really get the clean, clear flavors that we want out of a coffee like this. So I'm going to remove these tasting note elements really quick here because we're going to brew this coffee now. So I'll leave the coffee here. I'll leave my timer as well. So we'll pull off the flavor wheel. We are going to brew our coffee with a clever dripper. So what is a clever dripper, you might ask? I'm glad you asked. So a clever dripper really is a kind of a hybrid brewing method. As you can see, it looks like kind of a standard Melita shape pour-over dripper, and it has a paper filter in it, which is a number 4 paper filter, just like you would use in your Melita. The key, though, is in the little plate at the bottom here. You can hear me kind of click it. That plate, it compresses when we put it on top of a vessel to decant into. Until we depress that plate, the coffee is going to stay in solution, which means that it's going to be much like a French press. So that's why we say it's kind of a hybrid method. It allows the coffee, coarsely ground, as we would grind for a French press, to sit in solution and extract the flavors we want. But then, rather than the metal or mesh filtration of a French press, it actually uses the paper filtration. So I like it because I like the method of full immersion coffee, and I like paper filtration to pull off some of those non-water solubles and some of those other elements that, for me, kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of muddy up the flavor maybe a little bit. I have 27 grams in this paper filter here. I'm going to turn on my scale. This is, again, another time for us to give a quick pitch to the scale. I'm even going to go right up to the direct FaceTime with you here, folks. The scale is such an important tool that we get to use when we start diving deeper into working with coffee. And that is because it allows us to control a ratio of water to coffee. It's really key that we're able to have the right amount of coffee and the right amount of water. And so a scale really helps with that. It's often, if you know any bakers, we've been doing a lot more baking in our house, that's for sure. Bakers often discuss the importance of weighing their ingredients, right? Because volumetric weighing isn't as accurate. And it's true for coffee as well. When we're dealing with weights, we're able to make sure that we really have the right weight and the right proportion of things. So in this case, I'm using a 1:16 ratio. It means for every 1 gram of coffee, I'm going to use 16 grams of water. And I can weigh right on this scale. So let's go ahead and do that. So 1:16 with 27 grams of coffee means I'm going to put in approximately 430 grams of water. My scale has been tared to 0, right? I'll start my timer at the same time, and that's a 4-minute timer. Now, similar to other pour-over methods, I am going to use this kettle to kind of stir the coffee a little bit. I'm going to be a little bit agitate a little bit more and pour a little faster than I would with standard coffee. And right off the bat, you'll realize what I've done is I didn't bloom the coffee. But that's okay. That's okay. See, we all make mistakes. I'm going to just give it a little bit of a stir as well. And then I like to put this lid on. So, what did I skip? It's good to make mistakes. So I was so excited to get the coffee going. What I skipped was the bloom phase. So usually with this coffee, with any coffee that we can hand brew, when we can control for this, we like to bloom the coffee. What that means is adding enough water that's just double to the weight of the coffee that you've had, that you're using. Another great reason to have that scale is that we are able to start with, I know, for example, that I have 27 grams of coffee, so I'm going to put in 50 grams of water. I'm rounding a little bit. I'm going to put in double the weight of the coffee in water to do the bloom, and I let that sit for about 30 seconds. And what that does is it allows the coffee to go through a process of exchanging compounds that are in the coffee, gases, with the water, right? So that gas is bound up next to that coffee, that ground coffee, and the water comes in and just kind of pushes it out of the way. And that's what you'll see when you do the bloom, is the coffee will kind of rise up a little bit, expand. That's room being made as the gas seeks to escape. It rises to the top, and you'll see little bubbles appearing on the top of that bed of coffee. And that's the gas escaping. And what it's allowing, bubbles. It's okay this one time, Joshua, says someone on Facebook. Thank you, dear person. Mistakes. We make coffee in very specific ways, for very specific reasons, and we also at the same time can hold it to be true. It is just coffee, and it's okay because I'll get another chance to make more later today. That bloom, again, allows the gas to escape, allows us to begin approaching the point where we can truly saturate the coffee with water, right? Okay, I got some input coming in here from my friends at Batdorf and Bronson. If you're not reading it, it says, relax, Josh. Blooming with full immersion is a controversial step in full immersion brewing because the water is not passing through and draining out. The bloom is not as essential as it would be in a classic drip brewer. Always nice to tell someone to relax. That's truly what they need to hear when they're feeling a little upset. So thank you, passive-aggressive viewer. I love you, whoever you are. And I can't tell because I don't know who's doing the comment, but that's all right. So at any rate, really what I'm doing is I'm filling time because we've had to wait for our brewing process. Again, you'll see the coffee here has just simply been sitting in suspension, right? Now, as with, like, if you've watched when we cup coffee, you know that some of the coffee stays on top, other parts will begin to settle to the bottom. I know Brendan was experimenting with French press techniques this last week on some of the videos that take that into account. Here's this great thing about this brewer, though. Look at that. simply put it onto your vessel, and the coffee moves down through the filter. I'm going to give it a little bit of a wiggle as it moves down as well, just to make sure since it's been in suspension, again, just like it's not quite as important to do the bloom with full immersion, it maybe not quite as important to do that swirl that we usually associate, because the coffee, having sat in that immersion, is going to have, again, a lot of it is going to have settled already. Often the reason we do the swirl or the slight motion when we're working with, say, a Chemex or a V60, when we get to that final pour where we've gotten to the amount water we want, we do that slight agitation to remove coffee from the sides. Not quite as important with the Clever. So we'll see a nice, again, you can see a little bit of coffee on the sides of the filter, but not that much. But one thing to notice is you can look at the color of that filter, right? Again, when we talk about non-water solubles, other elements in the coffee that we are attempting to lessen, that's kind of what we're talking about. I'm going to use my favorite mug here today. I like drinking my single origin coffees out of a smaller mug, and that's just a preference I have. Folks, thank you so much for coming today. I see that Eric also is making a comment about not blooming. He said, I did not bother to bloom for years. I was not disappointed by my brew, provided the grind and water temp were right. Here's the Nori Kori, Papua New Guinea coffee. Again, it's great to grab these when we have them, because again, across our catalog, we get fewer of them. There's lots of reasons for that. When we compare how much coffee is made in that part of the world, it just is less coffee. And since we seek to get really great coffees, and since Bob works so hard to get really great coffees, if there's less coffee in general being produced, then we're often going to maybe find not as much coffee to buy. But when we do find them, we definitely get them, and this is one of them. So I want to remind folks today, when you're watching any of these demos, that you get to use a discount code that we associate with what we're doing here on these platforms. That discount code is Watch and Learn 10. So I'm going to go through really quick, just because I want folks to really be able to see it. So, for example, if you go to the Papua New Guinea, you'll want to choose a size, a 12 ounce, and then also you'll want to choose a grind. Now, we would love if not only you had a scale, but you had a burr grinder as well. We think those tools, those essential tools for home brewing, really help maximize what you're going to experience with our coffees. However, we can grind coffee for you as well. We have beautiful, lovely grinders that are kept top-notch, and the burrs are sharp and ready to go. So if you need us to grind the coffee for you, we can do that. You make that into this grind area here, right? So I'm going to go with whole bean, though. I'm going to add that to the cart. And then when I go up here and I go to my cart, you see I have it in here. There's a place for a discount code. I'm going to go ahead and enter that in. Watch and Learn 10. And then when I apply it, you'll see that it pops that right off of that top of that purchase. So, folks, same thing. If you go in here and you go to manual brewing, where am I? There's one of our scales. It's one of our precision scales. Here's that Clever dripper I was using today. You can go in here and you can buy the Clever dripper, and you can buy filters for it. Add that to the cart as well. We go back to my cart, right? And we'll see that we've also taken that percentage off of that part of the purchase as well. So just a way to reward all of our friends who are staying with us and watching all these videos, and also like and share these as well. I see some folks have already shared the stream. Let's see who's in here. Mark, thank you. I appreciate that. I have lots of new followers as well. We're trying to reach out and find people that are interested in what we're doing here. So by all means, like this, share it with your friends, invite them to come and join us. We do them 9 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday. We'll have different experiences here. Today we did a deep dive into the Papua New Guinea Nori Kori, a washed coffee from Papua New Guinea. I'm letting it cool a little bit before I taste it. And it is delicious. This Thursday, I'm going to do another of our Asia Pacific coffees. I'm going to do the Sumatra. And I'll let you know that Batdorf made me a Sumatra fan. I was okay with Sumatrans, but some of the issues that I talked about earlier had been my experience with them. But when you find the right green bean buyer, you usually find the right coffee. And I love our Sumatra now. So we'll share that on Thursday here. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. in this same space, we're going to be having one of our producing partners call in and have a conversation with Bob about our Bolivian coffee. Bolivia, landlocked country in South America, doesn't produce a lot of coffee. But again, through a relationship that Bob built over a decade, we were able to source some Bolivian coffee that we really enjoy. It's been done really well for us, and those who have tried it have really loved it. So we'll have Daniela on to talk with us about how things are going with the current crops that they're experiencing, specifically in relation to the problems with COVID-19. We'd love for you to join us, and again, to share that as well. That will be tomorrow at 9 a.m. So continue to come by, continue to like and share, continue to drink good coffee in your home, and if you ever have any questions, then please, you can ask us here in this space here. I see that Pamela just says, slowly learning. Well, I know. Me too. And Brendan popped in there and said, I wanted to thank you. That's true. Thank you for following us. It really means a lot. When we had cafes and our cafes are open, we get to meet people there and make new friends. And that's the place where people meet to share love for coffee. It's been a hard pivot for us to get more active here, but we're really enjoying meeting folks in this space as well and sharing coffee with you, knowing that you can have great coffee in your home, but you can also have a community of people who love coffee, and we can talk about it and share tricks and recipes. We've been sharing some fun recipes lately, so keep coming back, keep liking and sharing, and by all means use that code when you make your orders. We hope that is a nice little gift for the time that you're spending with us. It's really valuable to us to share what we love with you and know that people who love it as well are receiving it. So thanks again. We'll see you here tomorrow at 9 o'clock for our talk about Bolivian coffee, and then on through the rest of the week into the weekend as well. Take care. We'll see you soon.